Mark Stoops said he would not tolerate it if his team did not respond against Missouri. He was right for a quarter, and then things spiraled, all with one fake punt. Kentucky lost 38-21 here at Kroger Field. I'm Nick Roush with Adam Luckett and Drew Franklin. And Drew, the fake punts are bad. Is it that bad? I mean, I don't know how the games spiraled so quickly, but so many times we've seen Kentucky show some resolve in situations like this under Mark Stoops, and instead they got punched in the mouth and they got wobbly knees, like Ali just took him to the mat.
It's never good to be on the wrong end of a fake punt, but it seems to really suck when the ball just slowly floats in the air and you're like, well, he's covered. We're good. Still comes down with it. That was a terrible spot. Turning point in the game after a great first quarter, and it just never looked good from Kentucky from that point on. Just completely dismantled them, and I'm sure we'll get to it, but just so undisciplined in penalties throughout the story of this. Just not ready to play football again.
Yeah, and the favorite stat that folks are throwing around now, especially online, more penalty yards than passing yards. Kentucky had 6 possessions offensively after that fake punt that resulted in 9 yards before Devin Leary scrambled for 20 and then finally got things going. But we've seen this team shoot themselves in the foot so many times before, Luckett. I think the coaches were a little mad at some of those because, did Drew Phillips commit a pass interference on 3rd and 1 that led to the go-ahead drive for Missouri? Did he get pushed off on that fake punt? Questionable calls aside, Kentucky really played woe is me when instead of rallying around one another.
Yeah, it's hard to get the benefit of the doubt when this happens all the time, all these penalties. You look at Brady Cook had a season low in passing yards and yards per attempt. Luther Burton had a season low in receptions. Cody Schrader had a season low in yards per rush. If you would have told any of us that at 5 o'clock today,
Cats are winning.
you would think Kentucky's winning in a blowout. Yet Missouri scores 38 points. How in the world do they score 38 points when that's the production they get from their 3 big guys on offense?
Yeah.
That and going up 14-0.
Yeah.
14-0.
Right, exactly. So Kentucky comes out on fire. Everything is going right, and then it all falls apart, right? When the fake punt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you don't call them a soft football team after that. For the second week in a row, they got punched, and they totally crumbled. Like, they wanted no part of it. Everything that could go wrong went wrong, and they couldn't put a stop to it. Even when they finally do put a stop to it, they get a couple of stops on the defense. They get a touchdown drive, go up 21-20. You can't get a stop there, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. But it's not just one place or the other. It's all 3 phases.
Yeah, it is. It's every single one.
That's the scary part, is that it's not just, this position.
Receivers dropping passes, which that happens.
Or the defense has a bad night. Tonight it was all 3.
Oh, the punter was bad.
It was all 3 phases, and you got a blocked field goal.
Yeah.
All of that. You got a blocked field goal, and still you were really disappointed in how the special teams.
And is there like a rule that you're just allowed 1 free touchdown before halftime when you play Kentucky? Is it just like, come on, hold on, before you go to the locker room, we want you to have a few more points before you head back there? It's 4 straight weeks of it. It's been an ongoing problem in Stoops' regime for a while, but it's been really bad this season.
To me, I wonder, it's a high leverage spot. Are they just falling apart in the 2-minute? Like, what's going on there? Because now we're seeing a lot of high leverage spots, and they're all falling. They're just totally collapsing. And it's like, what is going on? And then I think even Stoops is perplexed after the game.
The way that Eli Cox put it after the game, he said, we got to grow up. We have to grow up. And the way that Brad White put it, too, for a lot of those undisciplined matters, it goes back to talking about soft. Just because that guy got you doesn't mean he punked you, right? Like, sometimes it's okay to take one to the cheek.
Yeah.
Just turn the other one. Right now, Kentucky's being a very immature football team. Mm-hmm. That's a fact. And I think a lot of this, it's what we talked about going into the season at SEC Media Days. Kentucky was shifting its offensive identity, all right? They did a lot of investing in the passing game. Talking about nil to keep wide receivers, nil to get quarterbacks, and nil to bring in an NFL offense coordinator. And it's not producing results. Barry Brown's been bad. He can't break tackles. They can't catch passes. It's a lot of freshmen. It's a lot of guys that they aren't playing well, and there's no accountability there because all the other guys transferred. So that's been a problem. And the thing that I worry about big picture-wise, like obviously Devin Leary has his mistakes, but he was dropping some dimes early. My big picture concern is that shifting to this offensive identity, it's been a failure. And I don't know if there's enough time, because right now, your best players need to be your leaders. They can't be their leaders because they're the ones making mistakes. So you can't turn to them because they're the ones doing it wrong. So now you need to be good offensively to break through. But this is just teaching the Stoops a lesson that, like, actually, if we do more passing, it's bad for our identity. It's bad for our culture. Because right now, there's a culture problem. Wandale, he was the straw that started that drink in that wide receivers room, and now they're falling apart because the leadership, there's nobody to turn to when things go wrong. And I think a lot of time it's because the supposed to be leaders are the ones doing things wrong. So it's just, I don't like to overreact like it. This quickly. I got a little galaxy brain there for a second, and I stumbled over my delivery of it. I freely admit you that. It's what happens when it's after midnight. But this is this isn't, like you said, this isn't just one specific thing now. Now it's a big picture problem where you're like, oh God, how bad can this thing get if they can't regroup? And even if they do regroup, is it good enough to wade these rocky waters?
Yeah, on the pass game specifically, they've played half the SEC schedule now. They're 2-2 in league play, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it legitimately sucks. The pass game sucks.
Yeah.
And you're getting, like, we're maybe one or two more, like, 200-yard game away from Ray Davis being an All-American.
Yeah.
Like, he is having a tremendous season.
He had 96 yards and a receiving touchdown at halftime, and I think he had like 4 more. I mean, they ended up getting some late garbage time ones, but it's like, hey, maybe go to that guy, give him the ball.
So you have a lot of things to figure out. Devin Leary has been a disappointment, but he's not getting a lot of help. Like, let's just call it a spade a spade. The receivers have been the biggest positional disappointment I think we've seen from this program in a very long time. Even the offensive line last year, I think, will be someone throws up, but even that one, you knew
they were going to struggle. We expected this to be the strength of the team.
We expected like potential All-SEC, NFL type production, and we have not gotten that at all. But it's not just the offense. Like, this was all 3 phases of failure. Last week was an all-systems failure. How can you go from what you put out last week and then in a big moment, like, just to totally crumble? It wasn't just once. They did it in both halves. It wasn't just one half. They totally crumbled in the second quarter, and they totally crumbled in the fourth quarter. I believe they're outscored 35-0 in those 2 quarters. I mean, that's the ball game right there.
I'll add a 4th phase. I thought the tailgating kind of sucked. I know that doesn't really impact the game.
Oh, it does.
For big game energy, I was disappointed in the fan base too. Steven and I walked around quite a bit, and we thought Florida at 9 a.m. was better than today at 5 p.m. Some of that's weather, some of it's coming off the loss, but I thought right out of the gate today just didn't feel right. I was excited to get here, and then once I got here, it just felt off, even though they did have a good first quarter.
It was a tough week.
It was very tough.
A lot of wind was taken out of the sails.
Oh, man, in that first quarter, it felt like big-time Ford energy again, and then the fake punt to go back to it again. Kentucky they were ready for it, and the guy just made a play. And you know what? Look, this feels like karma. We talked to Jason Anderson earlier this week on 11 Personnel. He was complaining and bitching about the pass interference calls they never had. What happens? Kentucky, they had 2 big punter plays against Missouri. So Missouri says, you know what? We're going to run a fake punt. We're going to throw a 39-yard bomb. The dude's going to shove off, and they're not going to call. We're going to score, and you're going to die. Season dead. Just like that.
Yeah.
That's what happened. But it all came out and bit him in the ass right at once.
But even before the punt, they had the ball up 14-0. Really had a chance to land the kill shot. If you go up 21-0, this game's probably over, or pretty close to it. The way Kentucky's defense was playing against Missouri's passing game. How many times have they've run a go ball to Barian Brown?
Don't get Freddie started.
They cannot.
I'm already ready for Monday's podcast. It's going to be bad.
He gets open. The throw is just probably 3 yards too long.
Yeah.
If you hit that, the game is over. So there's little moments in the game like that, and then but they're not, like, we heard Mark Stoops all last week, like, I'm not going to let what happened last year. Well, what happened last year this was worse.
Yeah.
Than anything we saw last year. I mean, they just totally unraveled tonight. And that is the scary part. When you're entering a big, tough schedule, you're moving forward, how do you, like, expect this team to respond? I mean, it's a long season, a lot can happen, but, like, what we saw tonight was a big, big red flag to me. Just how they just crumbled. We've seen bad performances from Stoops' teams. And it's one thing to go and, like, lay an egg at Mississippi State, or lay an egg here, or get blown out by a Georgia, or get blown out by a Tennessee. But tonight, they just crumbled.
And
They just fell apart.
And they didn't just get beat by like an All-American drew. It wasn't Luther Burden just mossing on everybody.
Yeah, it's not like he just came here and put up this
Missouri just
unstoppable
made less
performance.
mistakes. They were just like, let this other team just mess this game up.
They're going to torpedo
the
themselves.
T-word. I mean, sure, we get a weekend off, but we know who's next, right as we're
I don't even want to think about it, Drew.
I don't want to think about it either.
You got to deal with your father, and
Yeah, deal with my father.
the bye week's going to be long, and we know that Kentucky's really bad after bye with Mark Stoops. I believe it's 4-7. Can we talk about something nicer? Like, they saved hot dogs for us.
Yeah, let's get.
It's
Let me
not
get
even
a
a
hot dog
Tennessee
after
game.
midnight.
It goes Tennessee at State, a place you haven't won in forever. Then Bama at home. Like this thing can get really ugly.
And in BTI, I was calling him a coward for picking Kentucky to go 7-5, and now I'm worried he might be correct. And you know what? BTI cannot be right. We cannot let BTI be right. He sucks. So please, for the love of God, Kentucky football, do not let BTI be right.